Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. Welcome to Shaping Tomorrow on IKIM Radio. I'm Shafiq Burhanuddin, Senior Research Officer at IKIM. And in this episode, to discuss on the topic of revisioning the economy, the Iqtisad Ihsani approach is once again Dr. Adi Setia, who is the coordinator of Worldview of Islam Research and Advisory WIRA. Assalamualaikum, Dr. Adi.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah.
Alhamdulillah. So in the previous two episodes, we had more of an introductory discussion to understand better the context and where you're coming from in your discussions on economics, which you have termed Iqtisad Ihsani or the Islamic gift economy. But in this episode, we're thinking of focusing on one of your published papers on this subject, titled The Islamic Gift Economy, a brief conceptual outline, which you first presented in South Africa in 2009, back in 2009, so almost 10, 11 years now.
Yeah.
Let's start perhaps with what is, I thought, a very powerful approach towards the subject of Islamic economics as a whole, in recent times, which is your critique on the standard secular definition of economics. Now, I think we are aware there have been some attempts to perhaps engage with the conventional economics in recent times, perhaps in the last 50 years. But I think there's something rather compelling about the way you engage with the secular conventional definition of economics to present your or what ought to be our understanding from the Muslim point of view, drawing from our intellectual tradition. Please, Doctor, the ball is yours.
Yeah. All right. I think the first thing about any economy should be about livelihood.
Right.
So basically, and that those deals in with the original meaning of economy, which is the prudent management of the household, so that the livelihoods of everyone in the household are provided for, right? And, including the livelihoods of non-human inhabitants of the household. So and that should be the focal point of any economy, and livelihoods, and that means the promotion and organizing of vocations and enterprises that promote livelihood and well-being and prosperity for all. And so it has nothing to do with scarcity or needs, right? So and even when it comes to needs, so the needs are embedded into some holistic vision of livelihood, right? Of attaining to and maintaining the good life. And by good life, we mean both material and spiritual well-being, in which the point of the material well-being is the spiritual well-being.
Yes.
Not material well-being as an end in itself, right? Yes. So all that goes into what we mean by life. To be alive, to have a life, in the term livelihood, right? Yeah.
And perhaps you could shed light to us, because the way you presented it seems to be, you have made it very easy, because when you draw attention to the standard definition of secular economics, for instance. In this paper, is that you reminded us that it is often defined as the allocation of scarce, limited resources to fulfill the unlimited desires of man. And you drew our attention to the fact that there are two mistaken and largely unexamined assumptions, which are cosmological and psychological in nature. Would you say that perhaps this is something that many Muslims have not really paid attention to because they are not really perhaps cognizant or really have a deeper understanding of their worldview or their intellectual tradition, perhaps as you are, Dr. Adi?
Yeah, the thing is that the West every day invent all kinds of terms and invent all kinds of definitions for the economy or for health or for medicine or for whatever, and Muslims in general simply stupidly copycat those definitions with zero ability to talk back, to ask questions about those definitions, especially their muftis, right? So when I say that the Muslim are stupid, I'm talking about their mufti, right? I'm talking about the mufti, their ulama who have for some reason that I just simply cannot comprehend, who have just simply reduced the whole deen of Islam to narrow fiqhism, narrow reactive fiqhism, which is not even fiqh, but it's more like narrow reactive hialism. And this mufti go around the world and social media, and they become popular and and and, uh, and, and give and issue this kind of rubber stamping fatwa that simply serve to reinforce the Western secular nihilistic definition and vision of things, right? So why are we doing that? These people are what Prophet Atta has called the false ulama, and these people are the very same people whom Al-Ghazali years ago have called the ulama as-su, right? These people are evil. These people are completely evil. So, so one reason. What? And the Quran talks about livelihood, ma'ash. Waja'alna naharan. Okay, waja'alna naharan ma'asha. Right? We have created the day for livelihood, ma'ash. Right? And in the and in the Ihya, you have adab, al-kasab, wal ma'ash. And again, in now is the month of Rabi Awal, the birth month of the Prophet Sallallahu, and chapter 20, the heart, book 20, the heart of the Ihya is about the Prophet, and the title of that book 20 is again Adabul Ma'ash wa Akhlaqul Nubuwah. So it's about Ma'ash, Ma'isha, and that should be the subject matter of any discipline that calls itself economics, not some abstract notion like scarcity that is simply assumed, right? And then once it's all based on, so we have the current definition of economics founded on scarcity and needs, and those two terms are completely subjective, right? And not well defined, or defined so abstractly that they bear no relation to to any concrete situation, right? So what I have is that so what I have is a discipline that simply concord manufacture reality and impose that manufactured artificial reality onto the real reality. Right? And you can see that in the way the modern academic curriculum in any economics program, the focus on abstract mathematics,
Yes.
and formulas whose relationship to the real world is never critically examined. Right? Students just the first year, the very first year, they just exposed. The first thing that exposed to is econometrics, right? With no understanding of how the math is or is not derived from any actual observation of reality.
Yes.
And that's a fact. A Muslim, I mean, are stupidly copycatting this. Right?
Yes. Also, perhaps Dr. Adi, because I think perhaps it's useful, perhaps also to as part of our own efforts to perhaps awaken the Muslims and the fact that that definition of economics or how economics, the conventional economics is being packaged today, is the result, is part of the many years or centuries of process of secularization that led to that formulation. So I think that's hence I feel that when you pointed out is there is a cosmological assumption which is and a psychological assumption which is that's not really in agreement with how Muslims look at the realities of these things, that is particularly significant.
As regard the cosmological assumption, I mean, the notion of scarce resources. I mean, they claim that the world is never enough.
Yes.
But on the other hand, the needs of people are infinite. So I mean, so that kind of oxymoronic clash between those two terms, like scarcity on one hand and infinite wants on the other hand, render the discipline of economics not only a dismal science, but the impossible science, right? So anyway, so for Muslim, they see resources as I mean, resources we see resources as renewed at every moment. We see that, and Quran says so. We experience that, and in fact, we no longer experience that because we live in this conditioned artificial environment of death, of wage slavery, slavery, and imprisoned in cubicles for most of our working life. We are totally shut out from the real world. So being conditioned by this manufactured reality of concocted scarcity, and most of us are conditioned to believe in that, without standing back and going out in nature and then looking back and talking back to this concept of stability that have been drummed into their brain from kindergarten, right, all the way to the PhD, and what about wants? Yeah, but not wants or needs are a function of how you view the human being. If you think the human being or yourself as only a mixture of flesh and blood, and an ego, or maybe then maybe you only concept of needs in terms of having things and cravings, right? But you think of the human being as a composite of body and soul, which the soul has a deeper and higher significance. Then that very conception of the human being having a soul, that itself will limit the craving for material needs, in order so that the human can pursue those higher spiritual needs, which are intangible and do not in any way rely on material input, right? Again, and then I mean that's so that's the yeah, and yeah, and anyway, the fact of the matter is that our needs, our cravings are unlimited. First of all, just forget about worldview. I mean, our needs, our cravings are limited by our very biology, by our very metabolism, by our very capacity to process, by our limited physical capacity to enjoy all those cravings, to realize and enjoy all those cravings that we have in our mind, right?
Yes.
So I mean, and that's a physical reality. And even if we do not go into a question of worldview, right, or the psychology of human needs, right, especially when we refer to Abraham Maslow's scheme of the hierarchy of human needs, in which the needs of the body, the needs for food, I mean lies at the bottom. At the bottom means these needs, the material needs, are seen as merely facilitative,
Yes.
of the attainment of higher level needs, which are not at all material. They are like cultural, social, spiritual, intellectual. Right.
Yes.
Right. And that's a fact. And even economic law recognizes this by this law called the law of diminishing returns.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a limit to the fact is that our needs are themselves limited by our capacity to enjoy, by our capacity to attain to and to enjoy those needs. That is a reality. That is our existential reality. So and any economy that does not recognize this fact is a totally in some fantasy realm, right?
Yes.
So Muslim, they go to university, and what they're studying has nothing to do with reality. It's all fantasy. But the sad fact is that this fantasy that they earn degrees in, then they come back and they turn to policies that impose on people, and in the process destroy actual livelihoods.
Yes.
And this happening all over the place in Malaysia at every moment. And what are the Muslims doing? What are the Malays doing? What are our ulama doing? They're all rubber stamping. Halal industry, everything is halal, right?
Yes. Yes.
So this is crazy.
Yep. And I think that tadi building on that just commonsensical realization, you have sought to elaborate perhaps what as per what you have mentioned early on in this article, as we said earlier, titled "Islamic Give Economy: A Brief Conceptual Outline," which can be found on the internet on PDF. You said that based on these two cosmological principles, Muslims, in order to formulate an authentic, integrative Islamic economic system, which is something that Muslims have been struggling to build these days, in order to formulate an authentic, integrative Islamic economic system that is viable in the contemporary age, you said that namely one that is autonomous and can stand and prosper on its own principle while in constructive engagement with the West, instead of one that is co-opted wittingly or unwittingly into the mainstream neoliberal economic system. So can we say that what you have perhaps very in short, what you're attempting to present in this paper is potentially how an Islamic economic system ought to be in the current age, and notwithstanding the fact that it has been realized in the past, but in the context of the present day age, you're suggesting this is how we should understand it in engagement with the West or the mainstream neoliberal economic system. Okay.
I mean the engagement with the West is it's not because we really want to engage with them, but because of the arrogance of the West, right? Imposing its system on the rest of the world and unilaterally claiming that their system is universal.
Right.
And we have to engage that instead of simply rubber stamping that, right? How can you have ulama and mufti and shuyukh and imams rubber stamping such nonsense? I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, I look at the CV, at the biography of some of these famous muftis. You know their names, right? And I just imagine, they spend years in the madrasa studying the text. At the end of the day, for what? Just to press those, all they have learned, press all that to the service of Mammon rather than service of Allah. It just beats me to see that they have that this mufti have rendered their education in vain.
Yes.
Right? And almost nobody is speaking out against this systemic corruption of a big part of the deen, which is the muamalah. Right? And yeah, and the question about autonomy is it all refers to the hadith. Kullukum ra'in wa kullukum mas'ulun an ra'iyati. Each of you is responsible, and each of you is responsible over that for which he is responsible. I mean, all of us are accountable. So that means forget about the government, forget about the corporation. Each of us has a duty to relearn muamalah and to apply that to our personal lives to our personal economy, to our family economy, and to our community economy. And to do that has nothing to do with government or with corporation. We just do it. Just like we just do the salah, we just do the ibadah. We don't care whether there's a government or not. I mean, a lot of us when I've been to US, okay, to study, and there's no Islamic government there. Yeah, we do our salah, we have our jama'ah, we set our mosque, we pay our zakat, right? We don't need no government. We are the government. Each of us individually, personally, and in a company of like-minded, conscientious individuals, we are the government. We are responsible. We are accountable. And that is what defines us as human beings, as insan, because we are bearer of amanah, right? But to the extent we surrender our moral agency, to the extent we surrender our personal and collective moral agency, to the extent we cease to be insan. We are no better than Bahaim. So that means regain our moral autonomy, our capacity to exercise our moral agency, our capacity to do what is right.
Yes.
That's it.
Thank you.
Even right now, every of us have this autonomy.
Yes.
So the more we are aware of the nature of this autonomy, and the more we understand how we could go about exercising this, then the more this autonomy will be expressed in our lives and in our community, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing to do with the state. There's nothing to do with any sultan, any agong, any prime minister, any banks.
Yes. Indeed, and I think if we really think about it, I mean, historically, that's how Muslims have always lived and governed their personal and collective lives, taking full responsibility, as how Dr. Adi have forcefully articulated just now. Dr. Adi, unfortunately, that's the time we have for this particular episode. We really appreciate your very forceful and persuasive arguments and thoughts. Inshallah, we hope to continue to learn from your insights in the next episode. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been with Dr. Adi Setia to discuss on the topic of revisioning the economy, the Iqtisad Ihsani approach. With that, thank you very much. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.